There's a feeling you've carried for as long as you can remember. One that never quite fit into words. A quiet knowing. A strange sense of being out of place. Like you were dropped into the wrong timeline. Or sent ahead of your time. You've walked through life surrounded by people. Yet, somehow, always felt separate. As if your soul was tuned to a frequency no one else could hear. Maybe it started in childhood. Those moments when you stared at the sky a little longer than others. When silence spoke louder to you than any noise. Maybe it was the way you felt things too deeply, or knew things before they happened. Maybe it was the dreams, the strange, vivid dreams that lingered like forgotten messages. Chosen one, you were never broken. You were marked. Not by people, but by the divine. Before you had a name, before you ever took a breath, your spirit was sealed with a sacred identity. You were born with a mission encoded in your essence. And while the world tried to mold you into something else, the mark never faded. It only waited. And now, as you hear these words, something within you is stirring. This is not new information. This is ancient remembrance. Your soul recognizes it. Not with logic, but with resonance. If your heart is beating faster right now, it's because the time has come. You're not just waking up. You're remembering who you've always been. You were never meant to fit in. You were designed to awaken, to carry something this world had forgotten. Long before you could speak, long before you understood what pain was, your energy began to disturb the silence around you. Not because you were wrong, but because you were radiant. You didn't blend in with the others, not because you were less, but because you were carrying more. More sensitivity, more light, more vision. And that made the world uncomfortable. They told you to tone it down, to be less emotional, to stop daydreaming. But how do you shrink what was never meant to be small? Chosen one. Your calling didn't begin the moment you found your purpose. It began the moment you were born. Some children are given toys. Others are given responsibilities their spirits never signed up for. You felt the weight early. Maybe it showed up in the way you felt responsible for others' emotions, or how you could never ignore injustice even when it had nothing to do with you. Maybe you cried over things others brushed off. Maybe you saw suffering, and it didn't just hurt. It stayed. That wasn't weakness. That was the first whisper of your assignment. You have always been attuned to something deeper. As a child, you could walk into a room and instantly feel the atmosphere shift. You could sense when someone was lying, even if their words were smooth. You knew when someone needed help, even if they smiled. These were not accidents. These were activations. Early signs that your soul had already been touched by a higher dimension. One most forget as they grow older. But you didn't forget. Not completely. And because of that, you were misunderstood. You were likely called too sensitive, too intense, too different. You may have been isolated, picked last, dismissed, or told to grow thicker skin. But what they called weakness, heaven called preparation. That rejection, it wasn't punishment. It was protection. You were being separated, not because you were unworthy of connection, but because you were being consecrated for something greater. You see, many are born. Few are marked. You weren't chosen because you were perfect. You were chosen because you were available. Because even as a child, your heart remained open. Even after betrayal, you still believed in goodness. Even after being mocked, you still searched for truth. Even after the world tried to dim your flame, you still carried warmth. That's what the divine looks for. Not performance. Resonance. And the strange part? Deep down, you always knew. You knew there was more. You sensed there was something unusual about your life. How things fell apart just before they got good. How delays followed every step you took. How certain people left without explanation. That wasn't coincidence. That was orchestration. You weren't behind schedule. You were on divine timing. Your detours weren't mistakes. They were reroutes. so that you wouldn't miss the exact moment when your spirit was meant to remember. And now, here you are, still standing, still searching, still feeling like the world makes too much noise and not enough meaning, still waiting for something. Something not of this earth, not of the mind, but of the soul. This is your confirmation. You didn't find this message by accident. It found you. You were drawn here, pulled by an unseen gravity. And if these words are speaking to you like echoes from another realm, that's because they are. The time has come to remember the assignment buried beneath your scars, because the truth is, you were never forgotten. You were hidden, set aside, preserved. The world was not ready for your light, so the divine kept you in the shadows, not as punishment, but as preparation. While others chased platforms, you were being planted. While others spoke loudly, you were being tuned, in silence, in solitude, in sacred spaces. So now, the call is being sounded again. It won't shout. It will whisper. It will speak in feelings, in patterns, in signs that seem too specific to be random. You'll begin to notice synchronicities, repeating numbers, sudden clarity, a pull toward stillness, a hunger for truth, a resistance to anything that feels fake. These are not just symptoms of spiritual awakening. They're signals of spiritual remembering. Chosen one, you're not broken. You're not lost. You're not behind. You're being called back to the beginning, to the child you used to be, the soul that still remembers why you came. This is not a time to chase. This is a time to listen. The assignment will unfold, not in your striving, but in your surrender. There is nothing you need to do right now, except say yes. Yes to the possibility that your life was never random. Yes to the truth that your pain carried meaning. Yes to the whisper inside you that refuses to go silent. The divine doesn't choose the strongest. It chooses the softest. The ones who can still feel in a world gone numb. The ones who carry compassion like armor. The ones who break but still believe. You were marked because you could be trusted to remember. And you just did. There comes a moment, often quietly, when something shifts inside of you. Not because the world outside changes, but because the veil begins to lift. And what once felt like coincidence now feels like confirmation. What once felt like confusion begins to feel like remembrance. Chosen one. You're beginning to recognize the truth. The signs were always there. They were hidden in your earliest memories. The ones you used to dismiss, forget, or explain away. The way you stood at the edge of playgrounds, watching instead of joining. Not out of fear, but because you sensed something more. You felt energy, not just people. You noticed vibrations, not just voices. Do you remember that time you sensed someone was hurting before they ever spoke? Or how you could walk into a room and know, without being told, that something wasn't right? That wasn't just intuition. That was spiritual intelligence. The part of you that was never conditioned by this world. The part that has always remained tethered to the unseen. Recognition doesn't come all at once. It unfolds, gently, like light returning to a dimmed room. And often, it's triggered by pain. Not because you deserve to suffer, but because pain is sacred. It strips away illusion. It silences the noise. And in the silence, the soul can finally speak. You might be realizing now that your deepest wounds were never just random hardships. They were mirrors, invitations, portals. That heartbreak you barely survived? It taught you that your love is deep and eternal. That betrayal that shook your foundation? It taught you how to see through masks. That season of loneliness? It wasn't a punishment. It was a recalibration, so you could begin to hear yourself again. Everything that tried to break you was secretly shaping you. This is the paradox of the chosen one. Your strength is not found in how much you achieve, but in how deeply you feel. And still stay open. The world tried to desensitize you. It told you that feeling too much is a flaw. But your sensitivity is not a flaw. It is a frequency, a gift, a compass that points you toward what's real. You've likely spent years questioning, why am I so different? Why do people leave? Why does my path seem so hard? Why do I keep seeing the same numbers, having the same dreams, feeling the same pull to things no one else around me cares about? Because your life was never meant to follow the map of the majority. It was designed to follow the map of your mission. And that mission doesn't begin with movement. It begins with awareness. The moment you start seeing the patterns is the moment your eyes begin to adjust to the truth. You were never behind. You were in preparation. You were never invisible. You were hidden, for a reason. You weren't left out. You were being lifted out from the illusions others still live in. Look closer at your past. You'll see it now. The friendships that fell apart right before you lost yourself, trying to be who you were not. The jobs that slipped through your fingers before you made a decision that would have trapped your spirit. The relationships that hurt you, but taught you exactly what your soul would never settle for again. These were not setbacks. They were soul markers, designed to redirect, designed to preserve, designed to awaken. And even the strange, otherworldly things, the ones you've never talked about? Yes, those too. The dreams that felt too real, the sense of déjà vu that left your heart pounding, the times when you could feel someone's energy even from far away, the conversations that felt guided by something more, the urge to write, to heal, to search, to retreat, to pray, to remember. They weren't delusions. They were downloads. They were real. The world might have tried to gaslight you. Religion might have tried to shame you. Family might have tried to silence you. But the soul never lies. And your soul has been whispering the same message for years. There's more. And now, you're ready to see it. You're beginning to recognize that you are not here by accident. That your gifts aren't random. That your difference isn't a defect. It's design. You weren't made to blend in. You were made to light up. And the moment you stop apologizing for your light is the moment your real life begins. There is a reason you always felt older than your age. There is a reason you've always been drawn to ancient things. Old books, forgotten wisdom, stories of souls who transcended this world. There is a reason you cry at beauty, feel overwhelmed by injustice, and carry pain you don't even fully understand. You are a soul who remembers things others have forgotten. And in a world that is increasingly numbed, distracted, and asleep, your remembrance is rare. It is sacred. It is disruptive. But disruption is what shifts generations. You didn't come here to play it safe. You didn't come here to go through the motions. You didn't come here to chase approval or pretend you don't feel what you feel. You came here to wake up, and in doing so, awaken others. So if you felt like life has been too heavy, too strange, too hard, it's not because you're broken. It's because you've been breaking through. You've been shedding old skins, false beliefs, inherited fears. You've been losing what isn't aligned with the real you. And now you're starting to recognize the truth isn't coming from the outside. It's been inside of you all along. It was there when you were 5 and you looked at the stars and felt homesick for a place you couldn't name. It was there when you cried without knowing why. It was there when you prayed, not out of religion, but out of longing. It was there when you heard music and felt like it was written just for you. It was there when you found this video, in this moment, and felt like it was speaking directly to your soul. That's not coincidence. That's recognition. And it means you're remembering. There's a moment on every sacred path where denial softens, resistance dissolves, and something ancient settles into place. Not because all the questions have been answered, not because the pain has disappeared, but because, finally, you stop fighting who you are. Chosen one, this is that moment, the quiet return, the homecoming of your soul. Not to a place, but to a truth. The truth that you were never meant to fit in, because you were born to stand apart. Your path has been unusual because your purpose is unusual. Your struggles didn't come to destroy you. They came to strip away the layers of who you were told to be. so you could become who you were always meant to be. This is where acceptance begins. Not the passive kind, not the kind that shrinks or tolerates, but the sacred kind, the kind that says, I claim myself. You claim your sensitivity, not as weakness, but as spiritual radar. You claim your solitude, not as loneliness, but as divine appointment. You claim your pain, not as punishment, but as preparation for power. Because now you see it. You were never unworthy. You were set apart. Your rejections were protections. Your delays were recalibrations. Your missteps were redirections. And all along, you were being guided, even in the silence. You may not have known it at the time, but that season where everything fell apart, that was not your end. That was your womb, your cocoon, your soul being rewired, cell by cell, heartbreak by heartbreak. Because true awakening is not clean or comfortable. It's often brutal. It tears. It burns. It empties. So if life has stripped you bare, if you've lost friends, roles, even pieces of identity that once defined you, that is not failure. That is initiation. Chosen one, you've walked through fire, not so you could be consumed by it, but so you could remember that you are the fire. Do you remember the seasons when you tried to be like everyone else? When you tried to tone yourself down, play by the rules, chase the things others said would make you happy? But inside, something kept aching. Something kept whispering. This isn't it. This isn't who I am. That wasn't confusion. That was truth resisting falsehood. That was your spirit refusing to shrink for comfort. And now, you're tired of pretending. You're ready to accept the assignment. You're ready to stop questioning what's wrong with you and start asking what's right with your soul. Because the more you accept yourself, the more the illusion of this world loses its grip. The more you stop trying to fit molds you were never shaped for. You weren't made to follow trends. You were born to shift timelines. And that begins with full acceptance of your gifts, of your pace, of your difference, of your scars, of your knowing, of your sacred design. Acceptance means you no longer need external validation to feel valuable. It means you recognize your worth was written into your spirit before you ever did a single thing. You begin to see that you were always connected, even when you felt disconnected. That your tears were prayers. That your silence was sacred. That the very things you once tried to hide were actually the markings of your purpose. Think back now, to the times you broke down in secret, the nights when your body shook from grief or rage or confusion, the mornings when you got up anyway, when no one saw the strength it took to keep going. You didn't know it then, but heaven was watching. Your angels were taking note. The divine was marking every moment, not to punish, but to prepare. Because the ones who are sent to carry light in dark places must first become familiar with darkness. Not to stay in it, but to walk through it, so that when others are lost in the same night, you will know how to guide them out. That's why you couldn't bypass the pain. That's why shortcuts never worked for you. That's why you've always felt that your life had to be deeper, more honest, more aligned. Even if it meant walking alone. You were being trained in truth. And truth doesn't come wrapped in comfort. It comes in the form of inner earthquakes. It comes when everything false collapses, so that only what is eternal can remain. That is what you are now standing on. Not the sandcastles others tried to hand you, but the bedrock of soul knowing. The quiet voice within that says, you are not too much. You are not too late. You are exactly what this moment requires. So, let the old identities fall away. The labels. The masks. The projections. You no longer need to wear what the world gave you, because you're now wearing your original name. The one written in light. The one etched in your energy. The one only you can carry. Chosen. And being chosen doesn't mean you're better. It means you're burdened. with sacred responsibility, to see what others ignore, to heal what others pass down, to say what others silence, to become what others only dream of. So if you've ever felt too sensitive, too spiritual, too honest, too intense, remember, those aren't flaws, they are frequencies. And now, you are tuning back into them. Not to please, not to prove, but to embody the truth of your existence. This is the revolution of self-acceptance, not self-improvement, not spiritual performance, but deep, reverent alignment with your original design. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to be whole. And wholeness doesn't mean having it all together. It means welcoming every part of you back to the table. The wounded, the wild, the wise, the weary, the one who still hopes, the one who still sees light in everything, the child who always knew. They are all parts of you. And now, finally, you're ready to bring them home. Chosen one, accept this truth. You were never too broken. You were never too far gone. You were never unworthy. You were always enough. And now, you are finally beginning to remember who you've always been. So now, chosen one, we arrive at the threshold you've been walking toward your entire life. The moment of becoming. Not as a performance, not as an achievement, but as a return. Becoming is not about adding something new to who you are. It is the shedding of what was never yours to carry, the peeling away of masks the world convinced you to wear. It is the brave and holy act of stepping fully into the soul you were always destined to embody. This is not the beginning of your journey. This is the unveiling of the real you beneath the noise. The one who no longer bends to please the crowd. The one who has walked through fire and come out glowing. The one who now sees clearly that the delays were not denials. They were protection. That the isolation was not punishment. It was sacred incubation. That the very cracks in your heart are where the light has been waiting to pour through. You are no longer lost, because you are no longer looking outside for direction. The compass has always been within you. And now that you have accepted your identity, your frequency is shifting. The way you carry yourself, the way you speak, the way you move through this world. It all begins to align with the truth you've always carried. You become a living vibration of remembrance. Others may not know why they're drawn to you, but they will feel it. The energy of someone who remembers. Someone who carries fire in their presence and peace in their eyes. Someone who no longer needs to prove, because their being is the proof. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs your presence, your grounded, glowing, soul-lit presence. Because while others are still seeking validation, still chasing empty things, you've begun to walk with intention. Your steps are no longer random. They are led, directed. And when you begin to live from this awareness, life responds. Doors open. People shift. Synchronicities multiply. Not because everything becomes easy, but because you have become aligned. There is a calmness that now walks beside you. Not because the storm has stopped, but because you are no longer afraid of it. You've been through enough to know that you can survive what others only fear. You've seen enough to understand that truth will outlast illusion. You've let go of enough to realize that what is meant for you will not miss you, and what is not meant for you cannot stay. You are now becoming what your soul always remembered. A lighthouse in a foggy world. You don't have to shout. Your energy speaks. You don't have to chase. What's meant for you will arrive on the frequency of your authenticity. You don't have to defend your calling. You are your calling. And the more you embody it, the less resistance you meet. Not because the world changes, but because you're no longer giving your energy to what isn't yours. Becoming is a quiet kind of power. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't seek agreement. It moves with grace. It walks through rooms and shifts the atmosphere. It touches lives without needing to be noticed. It plants seeds in conversations, in glances, in simple acts of love. It listens more than it speaks. It gives more than it takes. And it always, always flows from a place of overflow, not emptiness. You're no longer trying to be everything to everyone. You're becoming everything your spirit needs to be for itself. And with this becoming comes a deeper knowing, that you are no longer here to repeat cycles. You are here to break them. You are the one in your family, in your lineage, in your lifetime who said, "It stops with me." The patterns of fear, of scarcity, of self-betrayal, of playing small. You didn't just survive them. You are transmuting them. Every time you choose presence over reaction. Every time you choose stillness over chaos. Every time you choose love over fear. You are shifting something in the invisible that will ripple into generations. That is the sacred weight of becoming. You are no longer living just for yourself. You are anchoring light for those who will come after you, and for those who came before you, but didn't have the strength, the awareness, or the tools to do what you now do with every breath. Your healing is not selfish. It is service. It is a cosmic act of reclamation, and it is changing more than you know. But becoming also requires boundaries, sacred ones. Because as you rise, old energies will try to return. Not because you are failing, but because you are succeeding. Light attracts attention, not all of it pure. You must protect what is sacred, not out of fear, but out of reverence. Not everyone will understand your journey, and that's okay. They were not given your vision. They were not shown your calling. They were not asked to carry what you carry, but you were. And now, as you embody it fully, you will find that the path becomes both narrower and higher. Less crowded, but more luminous. You may still have moments of doubt. Moments when the old voices whisper. Moments when you question if you're really ready. But know this. The fact that you're here, reading these words, feeling them not just in your mind, but in your spirit. That's the confirmation. You are ready not because you feel fearless, but because you are willing to walk forward with the fear and not let it lead you anymore. This is your season of activation, not just awakening, but embodiment. Awakening shows you what's possible. Embodiment makes it real. And that means your actions begin to reflect your knowing. You speak differently. You rest differently. You move with sacred intention. You forgive faster, not because you're weak, but because your energy is too precious to hold on to poison. You bless in silence. You walk away in peace. You create, not from need, but from overflow. You are now the version of yourself that your younger self prayed for. Not perfect, but present. Not invincible, but surrendered. Not finished, but finally aligned. And this alignment is magnetic. It calls in the people, the opportunities, the resources that resonate with your true frequency, not your wounded one. That's why the old is falling away. That's why the familiar may feel strange. Because you are no longer living in survival. You are now walking in your spiritual inheritance. And it feels unfamiliar because it is new. Not new to your soul, but new to your daily experience. Keep going. Keep unfolding. Keep saying yes, because every step you take in alignment writes a new contract in the heavens. One that says, I remember who I am. I accept the weight of my light. I walk now as one who carries the breath of truth. You are not chasing your destiny anymore. You are becoming it. And nothing can stop that. So now, chosen one, what will you do with what you remember? Not in theory, not in the future, but now. Because now, the remembering is no longer enough. This is the moment of choosing, not to become something else, but to stand fully in who you are. You are not waiting anymore. You are not hiding anymore. You are not shrinking to keep others comfortable. You are no longer dimming what heaven has lit within you. This is your activation. This is your declaration. This is the moment your past bows to your purpose. If these words have stirred something in you, if they've reached a place too deep to explain, then that's not emotion. That's confirmation. Your soul has heard the call, and your spirit is ready to rise. So write it in the comments, not for me, but for yourself. Write 111. I remember who I am. Mark this moment in the physical as you felt it in the spiritual. Let the algorithm be your witness. Let the heavens respond. And if your heart is still burning, stay. Subscribe. Not just to a channel, but to the journey back to your original light. Because the next message is already on its way. You were chosen. You were hidden. You were prepared. And now, you are becoming. The veil is gone. The time is now. Welcome back.